Okay, well, here we are again. We're at week 6. Week 6. I always tell students, I said that the quarter goes very, 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 very fast. It is very important to keep up. And, you know, we're at the point now where we're heading down to the last 5 weeks of the course. So at the end of this week 6, we'll have 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. So we'll have 5 more weeks left after this week. And it's very important that you have gotten all the assignments in at this point. I stress from the very beginning to all of my students that it's very important that if you run into a problem, do communicate with me as soon as possible so that we can fix that. Most of you have reached out to me either by email. I still have extended the phones as well, and I said you can reach me any hour of the day except the 25th hour of the day because I'm really seriously committed to trying to help each student. But most of you are doing pretty good. Probably the biggest issue that most students have is not understanding APA. APA requires citations and references, not citations or references. Citations in the body and references at the end of the paper. Some of you have high percentages in Grammarly, but I've been very liberal in terms of working with you on that. But very important that you run your papers through Grammarly to make sure that you don't have a high percentage of the sources that you deal with doing your research. In other words, you want to make sure that you have the information of your analysis or critical thinking of the issues that are required in the written assignment, as well as applying the sources that you discovered. So so anyway, the key thing is to make sure that you do complete those assignments accordingly, because you end up losing 5 points even if you have citations and you don't have references, or vice versa. Very, 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 very important. Then I always stress, and I haven't taken off points for it, but I'm supposed to, for cover sheets, all written assignments should have cover sheets. And then while I'm talking about the project, most of you are doing pretty good with that. A few of you didn't notice that at the very beginning, first week, I stressed and the first line of the requirements for the project requires one of 4 modes: jail, prison, probation, or parole agencies. A couple of you have come back with law enforcement or police agencies, and that's not it. I always remind students that this is a corrections course, and that remember the role that corrections plays. Corrections only begins to take place in the criminal justice system after a plea or a conviction, or basically if a person's found guilty or pleads guilty, and then the sentencing aspects of what happens. And depending on what the outcome as far as the sentencing will determine at what particular point that person will find themselves dealing with probation, parole, jail, and prison. So it's very, 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 very important, very important. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get right into sharing my screen with the assignments for the week. Let's go back to the classroom. I remind you again that, again, here's where I talk about research. most of you have been doing pretty good with the research. So you haven't just used the text itself. All written assignments, all written assignments should be in APA format. That means citations in the body and references at the end. That was what I was referring to earlier. And then we have some resources that are in here to help you to make sure that you, if you don't understand, that you take the time to do so. So it's very, very, very important. Notice that we have 2 more lectures after today. That'll be in week 8 and week 10. And while I do archive these lectures and send them, and I'm only able to provide you with so much information, I could probably resolve many of your issues and problems if students took time, such as I see John is here today, to come to the lecture. Very important. Sometimes students feel that, well, it's not required, and so they don't come. They'll rather listen to the archive. But I would make my best efforts to maximize everything I could out of every single course, because remember what we're doing, we're preparing you for your role as a future criminal justice professional, or if you're a criminal justice professional and you want to advance to a higher level, we want to help you to get to that level. And usually the best way to do it is have some direct contact with the instructor, and that's what I offer in terms of this opportunity with lectures that I do. So at any rate, let's take a look at and see what we got for this week going here. The prison experience, male versus female, and to read section 6, 8, and 11 of your text, and then pay attention to these activities, which we're going to look at in a few minutes: classification, fact versus myth, and some thoughts from a prison lieutenant. We're going to conclude with a video that some of you may have seen, but we're going to go over it and let you see it in this session. And then a reminder that your discussion posts, issues unique to female inmates, you are, of course, to have submitted your initial post yesterday by 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time, and then, of course, your reply post is due Saturday, 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. And I encourage you to reply to as many posts as possible. Again, most of you have been really good at this, giving me some good detailed posts, initial and reply posts, and just a few have given me one-liners, and you will lose points for it. And then I always remind students that just a few that this has happened with is that your post must be submitted according to the calendar in the week that the form takes place. After that week ends, you can't submit it, and I'll kind of elaborate on that a little bit when we get to the calendar, just to give you a picture of it. This may be some of the things that I'm doing repetitious to some students, but many students still, I like to keep reminding you, because once you start doing the assignment, then a lot of times you're working on it, but I try to get you prepared before you get there. And then the written assignment is 3 issues in our prisons today. And then there's the Stanford prison experience. That's a separate written assignment. Make sure you have citations in the body and references at the end. Don't throw a citation in there in line 1 or 2 or early, and then after that I see a bunch of writing and I see some stuff that is informational, and I don't see the credit as to where you got that information from. That is very, very important. You have to get accustomed to giving credit for sources of your statements, and that's something that you're going to need to do as a professional. It's something that is second nature with me, having been a lawyer and then having been in law enforcement for about 4 years as a part-time police officer. But the point of the matter is you have to be able to allow people to go and see the sources of your information. And then, of course, these assignments are due this Sunday by 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. Okay, and then there's my motto there at the end there. So now let's go over and look at the calendar so I can show you a little bit more in detail what I was talking about just a minute ago. Okay, here we go. Okay, so here we are right here. We're at week 6. These are the week 6 assignments. Your reading assignment, your initial post, and then, of course, your live lecture now, and then your reply post. Now, what I was saying is that your initial post, of course, on time is due by Tuesdays. Now, if you miss, and see, I do this a little differently. I could take 2 points off for 20 points total for each day, but I've been pretty generous with students and only taken 1 day off, 1 point off per day. So let's say, for example, if your post is due on Tuesday and you post it on Wednesday, your initial post, you're going to lose 1 point for each day. It's like, so then when you get to the point here, you get so you can lose 1, 2, 3, 4 points. Now, if you try to submit a reply post on Sunday, it's too late. It's too late. Now, what I have done is allowed students to submit reply posts on the 14th. And if they do it on the 14th, I take a point. Again, that's another thing that I do for my students. Technically, the form ends on the 13th at midnight, but I take away a point because I give the same consideration as I did to the initial post. A lot of instructors don't do that, and but I encourage you to put together very good posts with information, and then your reply post as well, reply to as many as you possibly can. And I let you know, you see, if you read your comments, some students don't read my comments because they say, oh yeah, they start out with generally, for example, the initial, for your written assignment, it'll say, I appreciate the time and effort that you put into completing this assignment. I start off all of them with that because I do mean that. I'm not just patronizing anybody, and I sincerely appreciate efforts. Then I will tell you if you did well, what you did well, and then if you did something wrong, I will tell you what you did wrong, and you need to correct those issues. As far as discussion posts are concerned, I will generally tell you that the information is good, that the details is good, and the content is good. And if it's excellent, I'll use the word excellent. And then if it's outstanding, I'll say that as well. And then I will, of course, if you have an additional post beyond the 2 submitted, I will give you some remarks that let you know I appreciate when a student submits an additional post, and thank you for it. That's just how I am. And you know, some people say, oh yeah, I already know what he's going to say. Well, you can think that if you want to, but I would always recommend reading them anyway. So then finally, for this week, we got the 2 written assignments. Again, 3 issues in male prisons today. I got the requirement for APA citations and references. And make sure that you satisfy the pagination. 2 pages means 2 pages. I don't want to see a page and a half. I've given a few people breaks, but now we're at week 6. I'm not doing that anymore. If it's not 2 pages, you're going to lose points for not satisfying that requirement. Why are we doing that? We're not being dogmatic with having you just to throw in information. It is pretty clear from our perspective that in order to provide really good responses to the issues that are in each written assignment, the pages required are set out to give you an opportunity to be able to correct that. There's been 1 or 2 that had 1 to 2 pages, but most of them are 2 pages. And I remind you that repeating the facts don't help. I'm interested in your critical thinking. So that's 2 written assignments. Most times you don't have 2 written assignments. You'll have a project maybe and another. But then here is the second one. Whoops, that's the same one. Let's see. 3 issues in prisons today. And the first one here is Stanford prison experience. Yes, so the Stanford, now be sure that you, be sure to do an adequate job. This is a 1 to 2 page requirement. So remember, if you do 1 page, you don't want to just copy and paste material. You also want to analyze and give it. Don't be afraid to go over and give me a page. I have had students give me 1 paragraph, and I ding them on it because a paragraph is not a page. Adequately lay out the answers that we're looking for. So the Stanford prison experience is in the module, and it tells you where you find the information. So I'm going to go over that in just a few minutes. But it's very important that I'm going to be looking for citations and references as well. Okay, so now, any questions thus far, John? You can type in if you have any questions. You can type in, and I'll see it in the. Okay, great. All right, so now let's go and let's look at what our actual assignments are. So I'll start out with the assignments again, being repetitious, but that's the way I want to make sure that you get it. You got first written assignment is 3 issues in male prisons today. And it starts off right at the beginning. Prepare a 2-page paper. And some people don't read that carefully. They'll look for that number 2. But it's a 2-page paper that does the following. And you got 2 bullet points. Make sure you satisfy them. Make sure that your grammar and spelling. And then your APA. I keep stressing that. And if you have any issues about APA, visit the online library. I've given you resources on our home page to help you as well. And you know that it requires a cover sheet as well as a reference page and then citations in the body of the paper. And then the other written assignment involves the Stanford prison experience. Now, and it actually tells you a website to go to. And this is the website that you use for the written assignment. And then we look at that, the video and audio clips, and then answer these 4 questions. Again, this doesn't have to be a 2-page, it could be a 1-page document. But make sure that you do it in not outline form, do it, in the written form that you're accustomed to. Okay, I want narrative, not outline. And you're going to discover this from reviewing this video about the Stanford Prison Project. And then you're going to, again, give your proper APA citations and references accordingly. Now, I'm not expecting you to go outside of that for this particular project, but the point of the matter is make sure you give citations to statements that you use to answer these questions. Okay? And then, of course, there's a discussion post. All right, so now let's go back and let's look at the content. We already know what the theme is here and what we're dealing with. And there's a, hold on a second here. Okay. All right. So now, all right. So now I guess you can hear me. I had to put you on mute because my wife was yelling at the kids. I don't know if you could hear that or not, but I could hear it real well. But anyway, that's one of the things about doing online courses is we have these things that happen at home. Anyway, we're dealing with classification, myth versus fact. Some thoughts from a prison lieutenant we're going to conclude with. And again, I've already given you this part here, the written assignments both and the discussion post. So let's look at this classification question. Now, as we look at the prison experience, there's male and there are female prisons, and people should be aware of the fact that there are different issues that take place in male prisons that don't take place in female prisons, and vice versa. But the key thing is to understand how classification takes place in these facilities. And it's basically based upon the risk level of the inmate themselves, based on the individual, that what needs they have, such as some people are in and they need to be treated for drug and alcohol issues. Very, very important. And those inmates are not treated the same way as others. The key thing is that those inmates, whether male or female, get the necessary treatment, because if you don't, you're going to have recidivists. You're going to have someone who goes in, they're going to serve their time, and then they're going to come back out, and the problem hasn't been addressed. And so that individual will come out and they will have that drug problem or that alcohol problem if they don't have the treatment. Let me give you an example from an experience that I had with a young man that I represented some years ago. This young man had been incarcerated, and he had a very serious drug problem. And he served his time, was out on probation, and while he was out on probation, what do you think he did? What do you think he did? You want to take a shot? What do you think happened? What do you think he did? And I'm going to tell you what ultimately happened to him. He was a recidivist. He went back to the crime because as you determine and learn in the criminal justice system, that repeat offenders are generally individuals who are committing crimes to support their habits. Their body is not controlled by them, and their free will is gone, and so it's an illness, and it needs to be dealt with. So anyway, what happened with this young man is that he was out, and then he caught another case. And his big thing that he did was burglaries. And so anyway, he was then, in custody. His family was upset because they said, well, we want to get him out on bail. I recommended that they don't, because he needs some help. He's not in control. He will say anything to you to satisfy you. He will lie to you because he's not in control. And so anyway, what ultimately happened is this young man, the family, against my advice, got him out on bail. Well, he snuck out of the house, and he was a grown man. He snuck out of the house, and he ended up going out in the neighborhood, went across an expressway, and he actually went across it. He didn't go over the bridge. He went across the expressway, climbed the fence, went over the freeway to the other side. Well, he ended up in a chase because the police saw him, or someone saw him, and the police chased him. And he tried to come back over the same expressway. And unfortunately, he was hit multiple times by vehicles, and he was killed trying to escape. And they were all saying, I wish I'd have listened to you. And I said, what people have to understand is that when a person is incarcerated, you're just holding them. but you need to deal with the issue. You need to get to the bottom of the problem. And so there needs to be programs to address that. And unfortunately, you and I know that because of budgetary restraints, there are not adequate programs. And so what we have is people coming out and they're going to continue to commit crimes, and then either they're going to get killed or they're going to kill somebody trying to commit a crime. Education. There are people who we have discovered that it is so important that education take place. If you do the research, you will discover that it is cheaper to educate than to incarcerate. Judge told me that many, many years ago. We were fortunate enough here in Illinois, and I was fortunate enough to meet a judge who was my mentor, who was a criminal court judge. He had a program that he and his probation officer got started in their courtroom for individuals who came before him who were males and females who had committed nonviolent offenses, and that those individuals had not attained their high school diploma or GED. And so what he did was he would offer them the opportunity to go through this program referred to as probation challenge, and give them an opportunity to, as a condition of their bond, to complete this program successfully, and then they come back, and then the charges would be dismissed. And that was great. And it started out in that courtroom, and finally one of our board members took it upon themselves, who was a state senator in Illinois, a guy by the name of Howard Brookins, took it to Springfield, and it became law, introduced a bill, and it became part of the criminal code. Well, here's what we discovered. Those individuals who went through that probation challenge program ceased to be recidivists. I mean, seriously, we didn't have a single one. Now, you've got to remember, just because it doesn't help everybody, the majority, the more that it helps, the better it is for us. Remember, educated people don't commit crime because they're working, they're given an opportunity, and that takes me to the next point we're going to come to. And the point of the matter is that they will be able to perform well and contribute to society. Now, just remember, if they have a drug and alcohol problem, it's not going to help them. We're talking about individuals who commit crimes and give them an opportunity to be able to educate than be incarcerated. And some of those people actually went on after their GEDs, because we were affiliated with a junior college in Chicago, and those students enrolled in programs there. Some got their associates, and some went on and got their 4-year degrees. Awesome, awesome experience. The problem is that it just hasn't caught on nationwide to provide good education for inmates. Some people say, well, why should they get education? They committed a crime. Well, one of the reasons why they need to get education is because you're going to be supporting them with your tax dollars, feeding them, sheltering them, clothing them. And if they are educated and have job opportunities, then they're going to be contributing taxpayers. Plus, one other issue is that I'm 67 years old now. I like to try to do whatever I can to put a dent in crime, because I may be confronted by some of those individuals. I'd rather be able to have one of them say, hey, do you remember me when I was this way? Now I'm that way. A success story, and I've seen them. So anyway, we look at it from that perspective. Then job training skills, that goes without saying. We those some people who just want to get a skill. They want to get a vocation. They want to be able to do something. And so if that's the case, then your assignment in terms of the facility is going to be different. So it depends on what you want to do. And that's, somebody said, that's when you do the rehabilitation approach, of course. But the point of the matter is that you're helping. And then one of the things that's not mentioned here is they have now included some second chance programs to give people an opportunity who ordinarily, even if they had the education, the skills, because of their record, that they wouldn't be able to be employable. Well, there's second chance programs that make exceptions to that and give people a chance to be able to be employed. But what we're talking about today is how do we classify these people. We're going to talk about another portion in just a few minutes, so hang in there. So it also is important for you to recognize, it says here, that inmates experience cultural change when they are incarcerated. And, you know, they are known, as they say, as prisonization, as they take on the customs and norms of prison culture. And see, that goes to the point that individuals who are incarcerated in prison, that's the worst place you want to have a person, is because you're subjected to violent offenders if you're a nonviolent offender, or if you're a younger person, you're going to be subjected to individuals who are either lifers or repeat offenders, and they're going to share with you how to survive in these places. And a lot of times individuals survive by joining a gang or either aligning with someone for protective purposes. So they begin to teach you prison jargon, slang, and I said, and gangs who are active in these facilities. And oftentimes, too, there are people who want stuff, you know, contraband. I am aware of the fact that there's contraband smuggled into prisons almost on a regular basis. Some of it by the officers, the correction officers themselves. I represented a young man one time. He did not know that he was bringing in magazines to inmates. This was in jail, not in prison, but they were incarcerated awaiting trial. What he did not know was that the magazine that he was bringing to them, they weren't pornography or nothing like that. They had soaked the pages in PCP or some kind of liquid drug and then allowed it to dry. And then they pressed it out so that you couldn't tell it was like wrinkled, and give it to them. And what do you think that the inmates did with the pages in that magazine? What do you think they did with it, John? Nope. They did too, but what do you think the inmates who got it themselves, what did they do with those pages? Yeah, but how? What was the quickest way? Yep, they chewed him. They chewed him. And they would chew them, and sometimes they would swallow, and sometimes they would spit it out. But the point of the matter is that, yes, the saliva would release whatever chemicals that were in there, and they would get high. And he didn't know that. He didn't know that. You know, so somebody calling me that shouldn't be calling me now. And so that's my daughter. So anyway, the point of the matter is that you find yourself in a situation where you're exposed to a culture where you find some really bad things can happen to you. I've seen the same thing happen with fruit, bringing fruit in. They take a needle and they inject the drug into the fruit. Apples and oranges are really good for that, and sometimes bananas. But anyway, the point of the matter is that you have unauthorized substances that are prohibited, and then you get to the hardcore stuff, weapons and things like that. You know, the bottom line is that people make shanks out of some of the simplest things, and they can cut people. One of the things that they didn't like to give inmates is gum. They didn't like to give inmates gum. Do you know why they wouldn't want to give them gum? you have any ideas why? I mean, we got some electronic stuff now, but what do you think is the reason why gum is not so good? What could a person do with the gum? They could put it in the locks, and the locks wouldn't work well. little basic things like that, and we, you know, when I was in law enforcement, we went over videos and stuff like that, and we said, oh wow, seriously, yes, and they could do those kinds of things. But anyway, no, it wouldn't lock them in. What they would do is that they would put the gum in, and the gum would go in such a way that it would jam the mechanism, and the mechanism would appear to engage, but it didn't engage. No, it did. In other words, it would in order for it to for it to click and join to the other side. You know how when you turn a lock, it goes across and reach the other side. Well, if you block the other side, it'll appear to have gone in, but it really will not. And that has happened. That's happened. But you know, you got a lot of electronic doors and stuff like that. But there's still all kinds of things that the inmates come up with. Two important issues to prisons involve sex and violence. We already know that there is oftentimes individuals who are subjected to rape. This is a very interesting law that happened in 2003 that the President Bush signed, the Prison Rape Elimination Act, which provides information and training for inmates and staff. You know, I said to somebody when I remember when this happened, I had just retired, and I remember when I looked at it. Here's the deal. The law on the books doesn't help, because the issue that's going to happen is that these people are incarcerated, and they're still going to get their sexual needs satisfied. And violence takes place, and the rape aspects of it come about in male prisons, and it is really, 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 really bad for an individual who's incarcerated that is a rapist or a child molester. You probably have heard that before, have you? Haven't you heard that? You heard that one before? That they're just waiting for these individuals. Yes. And what they will do is they will turn them out, and they will use them on a sexual basis. And so the staff is aware of those things, so they have to, in terms of classification, segregate those individuals because they're waiting on it. They're waiting on it. It's an interesting principle that criminals have, is that they can commit triple murders and all other kind of violent crimes. But if you are a child molester, you give a bad name to crime. I mean, they got a standard. So those individuals are in danger, and they have to put them in special areas, segregate them. So anyway, they're kind of hard for the staff to protect the individuals, and you know, with the staff shortage and manpower shortage, it makes it even more severe. Now, these are issues that I've talked about so far that involve male, but now many of the same issues apply to female prisons. And the female correctional population is increasing, and the reason is because females are generally incarcerated because of some male. And they are trying to do something to please some male, maybe prostitution or maybe drugs. But anyway, the bottom line, or participate in robbery, burglary, and so forth and so on. I have been to female facilities and talked to many of the inmates, and almost every one of them, if you talk to them, there's a male in there. You have a number who have been victims of domestic violence that enough was enough, and they took it into their own hands and actually attempted to kill or successfully killed. I had a young lady I grew up with. She was a very nice young lady, and she married this guy, and this guy constantly beat her, and she ended up killing him when he went to sleep, and she was convicted of murder and ended up serving time in prison. So you have a lot of those kinds of things that are involved, and so anyway, but some of the issues that women face, such as the female issues, taking females away from their children is a very, 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 very serious issue. It is a problem. Women have been subjected to rape, not necessarily by each other, but by the guards or the officers that are supposed to protect them, and they have given up sex for favors and things like that. Not to mention the fact that there are health issues that are ongoing with females as well. So anyway, the fact of the matter is that while the issues take place, we want to continue to operate on a professional level. So the bottom line is that there's these particular issues mentioned in the last paragraph here are very, very, very serious when it comes to females, and it's one of the issues that you guys have identified in your discussion post this week. Very, 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 very well. Okay. So now, okay, we're going to go to this myth versus fact. Now, I think we got this one already set up, so let's do this one. There we go. Okay. The question here that's asked is, what do you think? Inmates easily adjust to prison life. You could go ahead and type in your answer to your box and so forth. You don't have to submit it, but then I'm going to type in what I think. So what do you think in terms of inmates easily adjusting to prison life? Is this something that happens, and what issues? We've kind of already talked about the issues they face, but just a brief response to that. Can you do that, John? Okay. Okay, but what kind of issues that we've kind of identified? Some of them. Is it easier for them to adjust? Is it easy for inmates to adjust to prison life? Let me ask that question. Put it like that. Yeah, the key thing is that, yeah, you're right. The answer is no. The inmates are jailed or housed based on availability and need. But one of the issues is the hardcore inmate. who provides a bad example for a new inmate. That's what I'll type there. So here's the key, is that I always tell people that there are individuals who are submitted or subjected to these lifers or long-termers, and they find themselves adapting to survive, or so to speak, teaching them the ropes and those kinds of things, you know. So, but look at what it says here. Depression and difficulties are common. And that makes sense, that goes along with this kind of thing, because of the fact that the people have a desire to just give up. And some of the things that take place with those individuals is that it's true. People are depressed, they give up, and some even reach the point, and you and I both know that there are prison suicides on the rise in time. Just recently, former football player, I forgot his first name, but his last name was Hernandez, allegedly hung himself. And, you know, the same thing with a young lady who was arrested in Texas for a traffic stop. Sandra Bland allegedly hung herself. But anyway, the point of the matter is that these are common, depression and difficulties like the ones that I had there. Okay. Prisons are controlled and inmates closely monitored. Do you think that's true? Are prisons controlled and inmates closely monitored? What do you think? Okay. Let's see what it says. Many prisons are controlled by inmate gangs and not correctional staff, and that's one of the issues that I talked about earlier. So they're not controlled by or closely monitored because they're outnumbered. So the gangs are running the facility, so to speak. If you ever work in one, you'll discover that the factions that are the strongest pretty much run the prison. Yeah, on the record, yeah, it might appear that the correction officers are in charge, but that's not true. That's not true. Okay, so be aware of that. Next one. Contraband is rare. What do you think? Is contraband rare? Myth or fact? Okay, so you're saying that it's not rare. So let's see what it says. Drug, alcohol, gambling, and other unauthorized materials are common, as we already talked about, in most prisons. So it's a reality that you have to face when you are working in that environment. Okay, let's do the next one. Most inmates are sexually assaulted, particularly when new to the institution. Is that fact or myth? What do you think? Or true or false? Well, it is fact, as a matter of fact. Prison rape is actually, it says, less prevalent than previously believed. However, it says here it is actually less prevalent than previously believed, but it still takes place. There is, again, you got to remember one thing about prison rape is that it's going to be based on the training of the staff. It's going to be based upon them classifying those individuals, and because they now have learned more about classifying individuals, then the numbers have decreased, though it is still present. It's not going to go away, but the fact of the matter is less than it was before. Due to tight control, assaults are rare. Are assaults rare in prison? Yes or no? All the comments. Inmates commit more than 16,000 annual assaults against staff, inmate to inmate. So it is an ongoing problem. So yeah, you're absolutely right. It is. And it makes sense based upon things that we've talked about earlier. Next. Prison guards enjoy their power and fight rehabilitation efforts. Is that true? Do prison guards rather have their power and don't want to really support rehabilitation efforts? Would you think that that's true? You think that's true? Okay, let's see. I hope not, but correction officers are educated and highly trained. Most favor rehabilitation. That's what I was hoping was going to come out. And do not hold any animosity. So the key thing is that, remember, when you're a correction officer, you're going to try to help those individuals, recognize those individuals are human beings. And so you don't want to, you know, yeah, I know what you're talking about. But my point being is that what you want to do as a correction officer is to, that's why I favor rehabilitation. I talk about this all the time in class. There are people who talk about punishment as opposed to rehabilitation. I've given some good reasons why rehabilitation is better than punishment, because of the fact that individuals are going to come out at some point, and we want them to come out better than they were when they went in, not knowing how to commit more crime, so they come around. So we try to, again, put a dent in recidivism. So prison guards, their main role is to try to help rehabilitate the inmate. Women are seldom sent to prison. Is that true? Or is that false? That is false, absolutely. Gender-neutral sentencing reforms have placed more women behind bars. Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. Based on some of the things we talked about earlier. Absolutely. Female inmates form quasi-family units in prison, including same-sex relationships. Is that true? Yep. Females today tend to mistrust more, and they said they avoid forming close relationships with other inmates. I don't know about that. I don't know about that. I guess it would depend on who you ask these questions of. But I tend to go with what you said, John. They say that females today tend to mistrust more. And I agree and understand that, but they don't always avoid forming. Sometimes females are put into situations where they have no other choice. In order to survive in the place, they form relationships like that. There's a whole lot of same-sex stuff going on in prisons, and male and female. But in females, there seems to be an increase based on some of the things that I have seen take place. And again, I think that goes with the fact that more females are being incarcerated. So again, these are some misconceptions that some people have discovered. But I sometimes think that some of these answers are scathed, and that it depends on where you are and what locale that you ask these questions. The majority of female inmates are young and unattached. Is that true? Approximately 60% of all female inmates in state and prisons are mothers. So the answer is that is true. They are not young, and they are not unattached. When they say unattached, they mean they don't have children. Most do have children, and that was one of the issues that I pointed out earlier. and that begs to some of the problems in female incarceration. And when it arises, that issue has to be addressed. There are some programs where children are able to come out and visit their mothers. Again, it doesn't appear to be a major problem with the males, but it is. This not attaching. Taking away. I'll just use it this way: taking away the children from their mothers and not having them be able to have any build an attachment is a major problem, and it has to be addressed. And that's the end size there. Okay, so now let's, we got a few more minutes here. Let's take a look at this video. Attempt to put it up. Some thoughts from a prison lieutenant. I have a young lady who was a prison lieutenant who was one of my former students for a long time in a male facility, Stateville in Illinois, but now she's a major and she's moved up. But listen to this. This is some very good information for you. Here we go. And it's about 7 minutes long. So.
Which is intake facility for the whole department of Minnesota. I've been at the department for 28 years. I started as a corrections officer, under corrections sergeant, and now my current position, corrections lieutenant. I'm also the team leader for special operations response team, and I also do a lot of training in that. So what do you need to be a corrections officer? What are the minimum requirements? GED or high school diploma. You apply online, and then they set up the testing. The test consists of a writing component and a video component. If you pass that test, you will grant an oral interview. 6 questions of they'll get scored. You got that. Then all candidates who pass that will fill out a form for criminal background check, predatory check, and a criminal history check. So that they'll start doing that. If you pass all those, then you'll be offered a job. You obviously get offered a job. You need to be can't be incarcerated within the past year, and if you want, you need to provide documentation that you're on supervised parole or release time, proving that's been completed. Okay, so you do not need 2 years degree or any experience. High school is sufficient. Yes. Okay. And then if you get hired, you'll have to pass physical exam, there'll be drug testing, TB testing, and then once you pass all that, you do 6 weeks in the academy, and then first year employment probation. Okay, so lots of training that goes on-the-job training that goes along with this. Yeah, that's the majority of that first 6 weeks is on the job, and after that, you start on the job shadowing stuff. Okay, so if I were hired as a correctional officer, what a typical day, what would that day look like? Well, you're driving one, pick up your radio, your keys, everybody has to wear a utility belt, the cups, calculator, that's in the front of your bus. You could work anywhere from the living unit to your control center to supervising the vendor group as well as most officers. Yeah, they have a lot of observation and can seem to be boring at times, but that can escalate to very dangerous and wild times in a split second. A lot of our situations are just dealing with officer presence, communication skills, verbal practice. We can mainly get our class that way. That doesn't work. You go up to the force continuum all the way up to intelligence, intermediate weapons, whatever it might be. And it's not uncommon. We have fights quite regular. Deal with like that kind of issues and people getting sworn. It's just not important. Okay, so you mentioned that you were in the intake facility. So do you classify inmates? Can you talk about that and what level of security is this institution? The security levels for the institutions go 1 through 5, 5 being the minimum, 5 being max. They determine the facility security levels, the operational needs, and the structural needs. For instance, the level 1 is requirements for mandatory outside control, there's like a secure perimeter mandates for high latches on the wall, things like that. So once you designate facilities, when they come to our facility, they're seeing right in the intake area, the fingerprint, they're asked a series of questions to take pictures of pictures of attachments and see health service right away that are brought into the intake unit, which is an area I see. But they spend about 30 days on there, they go through orientation. First, all day there, and then they're seen by health service, psychology, alcohol, drug assessment, education testing. A lot of things going on to help the classification. Within 14 days, first 14 days, the case manager should enter data relevant to their classification score. And their classification score is a number, and it's a factor of your current criminal conviction. What that is, your past criminal history in the last 10 years, your behavior in prison in the last 5 years, and then there are classes and classification. For instance, if you have like you have qualified by what symptoms that are any other factors. So from the 28, 45 days of classification officer and your team lead thing, they give you a score and that'll determine your classification. And at that point, we'll decide by classification treatment needs and then other factors of what facility you need to move to. And then we'll transfer from there. And it's not uncommon for us to get 40 offenders in a day, or 40 out, so we'll be very busy.
So the intake part doesn't happen in a day or two. It actually takes a few weeks.
Yeah, when they come in EOs, they probably spend approximately the first 30 days to get the intake unit, then they move to the next unit. Sometimes they can transfer right from the house. Probably in about 3 weeks, they're done with most of their intake needs, all their assessments, testing, stuff like that.
We talked about a lot of things that a correctional officer might do. And in our text, we talked a lot about professionalism and issues related to just being healthy as someone who works in this field. What contributes to correctional officer professionalism?
Well, you're supposed to treat everybody with respect, be courteous, and you give respect, you give respect. People that seem to be successful in this career have the ability to deal with the stress that we have in this center environment and a way to deal with it away from work also. They tend to take the high road in tough situations.
Do you have advice for students today who are interested in going into this field?
Yeah, most people that are good corrections officers, they're good observers, they're good communicators, they have good de-escalation skills. I mean, these people are incarcerated, but they're human beings and treated as such. So that's what they can have at the time. If they escalate beyond that, that's another situation. But most of the people that are most successful, and like I said, there are a lot of rewards as far as dealing with people. Sometimes you can make a difference in situations. But keep in mind, you go from, it can be very boring and get complacent to very exciting split second. So you see a lot of different things around here. Really, all teams go over there. There's no more.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Let's go back into the classroom now, and let's put my video back on. So one of the things that I do want to say is at the very beginning is that the person talked about the educational requirements. I want you to know that, and you probably already know this, is that there are students that look at that and say, wait a minute, then why am I in college to do this? The reason why you're in college is because the paradigm is changing. There are advancements that persons want. And that many of the agencies, this apparently was an older one, because I had another, I think it was in week 4, that we had a person that we included in a video, and the more education, the better. The young lady that I was talking about, who was a lieutenant, she was a lieutenant because, like, she started out right out of high school working there. But as time moved on, she wanted to move up to a higher level, so she got her associate's degree. And so with the time that she put in, she qualified, passed the test, and so forth. But then she wanted to go higher to the farthest point she could go, which is major, and she ended up going to get her bachelor's degree in corrections. So the key thing to know is that if you're going to progress up the ladder and go to a higher level other than being a mere corrections officer, you probably want to get some college and get your associates and possibly even your bachelor's. But the key thing is that they were talking about the professionalism. There are things that you now are learning at the college level that I remember my student saying that she did not know, and how they were approaching things based upon the level of coming from high school, that when she got into the college level, she learned a better way to become a better correction officer. So the bottom line is that most of those other things that that officer shared, I heard another person that was in the same video that we had, I think, in week 4. She said firm, fair, and committed, I think. Firm and fair are the two things. And notice that that's the way you don't want to try to get into a mode where you're making deals with inmates and find yourself in that situation. So, and then you don't want to be in a position where you lose control either, losing respect from the inmates as well. So it's very important, very important. The most educated individuals will climb to the higher level and maybe become wardens, or again, as this young lady I talked to you about, she actually has several occasions run the facility. This is a female, and it's an all-male facility, but she's very well respected by people, her people that she worked with as well. They respect her, and then she shares with me how she was able to connect with many of the individuals who are housed at this facility. And this is a maximum security facility. It's not a minimum security facility. Notice, too, that they talked about the classification. We kind of talked about that before, but it's based on the needs. And then you also got to remember that this officer was speaking from the perspective of intake. Now, what you have to realize about correction facilities is intake is a place where you determine what the needs are for those individuals, and then they're classified according to some of the things that we talked about a little earlier in this class. So, so that's about it. Any questions or comments, John? Anything? Any comments? Questions? Okay, very good. All right, well then I am going to adjourn, and our next session is in week 8, and you know, keep on doing what you do. Keep on getting the assignment in. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. So thanks for coming out today. It would be better. I got 2 sections of this course. I think I got 30-something students in one section, and I got 15 in the other. Yet the people come out 1 to 2 students, but that's okay. It's okay. I'll keep doing them anyway. So I'll be providing an archive of this. That if a person heard me say that, they'll realize that before they get to the end. So I'm going to say good night to you and have a good evening. Okay. Thanks, John. Appreciate that. All right. Have a good one.